areas or industries. One of the core objectives is to collaborate with various industry platforms, trade associations, chambers of commerce, management associations, apex bodies of government or quasi-government organization to contribute to the betterment of the industry initiatives, which will in turn contribute to the betterment of the society. Next slide, please. About World Accreditation Day 2020, it's a global initiative established by ILAC and IAF. The theme for this year is how accreditation improves food safety. Accreditation has an important role in food safety by ensuring competent and impartial inspection, certification, and testing services in all parts of local, national, and international food chains. In doing so, accreditation supports the United Nations SDGs, in particular the SDG number 3, that's good health and well-being goal. Accreditation can be applied to a wide variety of assessment, approval, or evaluation tasks and is used by business, government, and regulators to help deliver a safer world. Next slide, please. So may I request Mr. Alok Jain to take through the training and capacity building division of QCA.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar, my dear friend. Myself, Alok Jain. I am the Director and Head of Training and Capacity Building Division of Quality Council of India. As Kumar has just mentioned, June 9 is the World Accreditation Day. And this year, the focus is on improving food safety. And Consultant Consortium of Chennai is celebrating this WAC 2020 in a unique way, that they are having this series of webinars on this particular topic. I thank Consortium to give me an opportunity to introduce a new division of Quality Council of India called Training and Capacity Building Division. As you know, that Quality Council of India is already having various boards responsible for the accreditation of the conformity assessment bodies. Like NABCB is giving the accreditation to inspection bodies and certification bodies, NABL for laboratories, NABS for healthcare providers and hospitals, NABIT is for the education sectors, and NBQP is the promotion of the quality. So Training and Capacity Building Division is a new division which is created in the Quality Council of India. And its main aim is to give the training in the various domains, covering food safety, quality management, manufacturing, information technology, environment, project management, etc. And we look forward to work closely with the government, with the ministries, associations as well. And this is why we are working. I am here, and we look forward to collaborate with the CCC in the training and capacity building activities. Thank you very much, Kumar.
Thanks, Alok. Next slide, please. Yeah, so now may I request the presenter and co-presenter to introduce themselves and take over the session. Thanks.
Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Myself is Vani Bhampriya Arora. By education, I am a food technologist, and I have experience of working with the food industry, consultant organization, conformity assessment body, accreditation body. And I was with NABCB for more than 13 years. And now I'm working as a freelance expert with national and international bodies like NABCB, Yoga Certification Board, and APIDA, and international bodies like IAS, JAZANS, and UF, etc. And as passion, I am associated with few NGOs, and I'm teaching students there. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Krishna Datta, and I have the privilege of being a co-presenter here with Vani. Vani and I have a long association, so maybe about 10 years. And you know, in the area of food, we were always collaborating for a number of things. So as far as my introduction goes, I am into actually manufacturing of frozen foods currently. But besides that, I do a lot of assessments as well as training in the area of food management. And by qualification, I am a microbiologist and have spent most of my time in the certification bodies prior to doing manufacturing. So that's about me, and over to you, Vani.
Thank you, Krishna.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening to all of you once again. And rather than good evening, I would like to say good day, because now we all are in virtual world and sometimes in different time zones too. I'm sure most of us are using technology to its best, and during this lockdown especially, and e-commerce is also an output of technology. I will express my gratitude to CCC to give me the opportunity and a floor to share my views and knowledge, whatever little bit I have on this topic. So before talking about the food safety, let's talk a little bit about the e-commerce. In 2020, e-commerce is no more a novel technology to most of us. We all know, we all are doing shopping. Most of us are using this technology, especially during this pandemic, when we have a situation and we have to maintain the social distancing. So we have been using websites, apps, WhatsApp, and so many other means to buy and sell the products through online platform. We all know how it works. We all know there is a front end where we can see the products, we can choose whatever product we want, and then we can select those products, put in our basket, make the online payment, or payment is done when the product is delivered. And by this means, we buy the product. E-commerce is an innovative and digital, it's not non-traditional channel to market for food that has extended the last mile of delivery to the consumer. Generally, the products were delivered in previously also products were delivered, but now the last mile of delivery is extended and the products are generally delivered at the consumer doorstep. So last mile of delivery is extended. E-commerce was adopted by World Trade Organization in 1998. So this is not very much novel to all of us. And in this fast changing retail environment, staying close to the shoppers and channel is very crucial. If we talk about market of e-commerce, we all know there is a rapid technology development and increasingly accelerated lifestyles has significantly impacted the way consumers shop today. It has changed. We no longer prefer to go to the market and do the shopping. We want to sit in our office, our rooms, our sofas, and want to buy most of the products. And sometimes it's needed, it's required. Like a working person doesn't have that much of time to buy the products, to go to the mall because of traffic, because of the conditions, because of the time. All those factors are affecting that. There is a significant change in shopping habits of consumers, as I have said. And it's believed that through 2023, demand growth in countries will be driven by the 5 key factors for the e-commerce. First will be definitely increasing comfort. Once we find that e-commerce is comfortable, then we all want that comfort again and again. So increasing comfort among existing online shopper in making routine grocery purchase online. I just put everything in my basket throughout the day, and next day the things are delivered at my doorstep. Growing use of subscriptions and membership with online retailer, which can promote retailer loyalty and increase online sales. That's another factor. And another factor, which is through Digital India, if we say about the greater penetration of broadband internet in rural and remote areas that previously only had access to dial-up. So now we can see the people in cities, even in second tier or third tier cities, they are also using e-commerce as a means to purchase some of the product, if not many, I will say. Some of the shopping they are doing through the e-commerce websites or apps. Greater acceptance and investment in home delivery, click and collect, and drive order fulfillment formats in an increasing omni-channel retail environment. And then finally, improvements in the data security that ease the consumer fears about having their personal information stolen while shopping online. Now we believe that the apps, and especially the apps which are secure app, which has HTTPS formats and which are developed by the companies. There are more strict data security laws coming up in that. So all this is giving a confidence to the consumer, and they are doing more and more online shopping. If I see the e-commerce business as a sales channel is growing at an unprecedented rate, expected to reach a total global revenue of around USD 267 billion by 2023. And I have taken this data from Kinters. There is a group of consultant, FIA. I have taken the data from them, so I want to acknowledge them. By 2023, and with a compound annual growth rate, which by 2019 to 2023 will be 10.4%. Asia Pacific specifically is said to contribute more than half of the global e-commerce revenue. And if I talk about APAC will have a total revenue by 2023 will be of US dollar 143 billion. It may further increase because we have seen that due to Corona, this pandemic, the online shopping, the percentage, the consumers, the customers for this online platform had further increased. So this data may change because this data was depend on the study which was conducted in March. We were not expecting that this pandemic will grow that much. So this percentile will may further change. As I've said that I should not say, but the fact is COVID-19 pandemic has further accelerated adoption of e-commerce as a channel for the sales of food and beverages. As more markets have gone into lockdown and consumers are forced to stay at home, they are becoming increasingly familiar with online delivery for both meals and groceries. Post-COVID-19 online purchase behavior is expected to sustain. That's why I said that once we are used to for comfort shopping, we are going to sustain the comfort shopping. To be frank, it was a lifesaver during pandemic, especially for the older people. There are large number of benefits of this e-commerce. E-commerce provide consumers with a greater choice and convenience, as well as access to the food product that they could not access through traditional physical trade. What happens that in the physical trade, there is restriction on number of shelves because there is restriction of size of a market or size of a shop. So generally the shopkeeper or the retailer, they used to keep the product which are in demand. So some of the products are not available on the shelf, but this e-commerce gives the consumer more choice, more availability of the product. This size and shelf restriction is not just bad for the consumer, but it is also not good for the manufacturer, as then they need to give more commission to the retailers or the shopkeepers to shelf their products. With e-commerce, products and services assortment had expanded drastically. Consumers now have access to a global variety of products and services without having to visit a single physical store. We save time, we save petrol, etc. E-commerce is also suitable for highly fragmented food supply chain. It can bring huge opportunities, especially for the small and medium-sized enterprise, by linking them directly with agriculture input markets and consumer. It can connect SME or sometimes farmers directly to the global market. Otherwise, they can't connect themselves because of limitation of resources to the global market, but through e-commerce, they can connect directly to the global market, which is definitely a very good thing for the farmers. And MSME, I should not say SME, it's MSME. Definitely it is considered cheaper option as cost of managing outlet is reduced, less space is required, you don't have to give rent, the electricity, the workers, and many more hidden charges. Definitely on other end, some cost increases because of packing, delivery, all those things. But I still feel that space and giving a rent, that is most costliest thing. Safe during pandemic, I have already said, doorstep delivery. We are doing digital payment, which there is no exchange of currency notes. So it saves us from the pandemic. As the e-commerce channel continues to grow rapidly, it is gaining increased attention from different stakeholders, including consumers, retailers, brands, and regulators alike. These stakeholders have different interests, and it is therefore important for the collective industry to strike a balance in order to drive the one objective that they all have in common: safe and sustainable growth. While there are immense opportunity in e-commerce sector as a platform for food and beverage player, but definitely there are challenges, especially with regard to food safety and quality, which we will discuss today in food safety issues. These challenges will remain and must be addressed to achieve long-term sustainable growth. So we will discuss these issues. First and foremost issue is that risks due to extended transportation. I've said that last mile of transportation has been extended in e-commerce, and generally, I'm again saying the word, generally the products are delivered at the doorstep. So due to this extended transportation, there is risk due to transportation, delivery guys, products left outside the door, etc. Now this transportation plays an important part also in e-commerce. Some food companies use their own in-house food delivery system. We all know there are companies which have like Amazon or Swiggy, and other use third-party delivery service boys. There are many, like I was looking at delivery persons, and there are many other services providers to deliver the food to the customers. Some companies have even started, although not in India, but I was looking at some news that during the pandemic, they were using the robots for delivering the products. For most parcels, such as, if I talk about non-food products, such as clothes, books, other commonly ordered goods, temperature control is rarely an issue. But however, this for the perishable products, facilities that store perishable foods have a constant component to manage the temperature fluctuation. So for food products, especially, transportation is can become a big food safety issue if it's not handled properly. If I don't have much data, Indian data, but I have some of the foreign data. According to NRDC, cooling and refrigeration inconsistency is one of the biggest contributor to the food spoilage and waste. This is because every food item has a definable maximum shelf life, and storing them at less than optimal or constantly changing temperatures can exacerbate and drastically shorten its timeline. Mistakes with heightened temperature on items like meat and poultry can also lead to bacteria growth and food-borne illness. In fact, the CDC estimated that there was around 48 million people get sick, 128,000 are hospitalized, and 3,000 die from food-borne diseases each year in US, putting a spotlight on how seriously food safety issues to be taken, especially when we are managing a sensitive product, temperature sensitive product. Another food safety issue could be the warehouse. How the products are stored in the warehouses. Temperature maintenance in the warehouses. Again, the temperature is very much important, especially for the food sector. Whether we are managing FIFO, which is first in, first out, or FIFO, which is first expire, first out, how the product rotation is done, stacking, etc. Because stacking is also very important, because if we don't stack the product properly, then there are chances of pest, growth of pests, then there are chances of improper cleaning and sometimes bruising of the food products also. And if I say, then the freshness, to retain the freshness of the product, it's the warehouse is the start point from where we have to maintain the freshness of the product. If a e-business entity is into storing, delivering, and distribution of the food. Another important point is claims made on the website. We need to be very careful what claim is made on the website. claims about certification, claims about product details. Now we even have concerns about origin of products, etc. So we need to be ensure what claims are maintained, what claims are made on the websites. Labeling information is also important, and as per our law, which we will discuss in detail, that for packaged products, the labeling information should be same as required for the product as per the regulation, labeling regulation. And for ready to serve products, like for the products of Swiggy, etc., we will discuss in details. Anything? Excuse me, is there anything?
No, go ahead. Somebody unmuted.
Yeah, Vani, actually, there is one question.
Okay.
How we can track in case of spoilage or some physical hazard?
Let me come to that. Na? My next point is traceability only. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
So we have already discussed the labeling information, and for ready to serve, I've said that we have not much requirements for ready to serve products, but there was some discussion. Okay, we will discuss those discussions when we will come to FSSAI regulations. And then as somebody else talk about that, how to ensure from where. So traceability is a requirement as per our law also. So they have also said that whole supply chain traceability has to be maintained. And we are also says that when we talk about tech-based everything, we need to enable the tech-based traceability. And we also have to ensure that if there is any foodborne outbreak response and outbreak recall communication throughout the food supply chain, because sometimes product is not just from your country. The product, this e-commerce market is a global market. Products can be kept from any country on your which you can see on your app or your website. So how we are going to address this, how legally we are going to address this, we will discuss little later. But yes, it's a responsibility of person who is putting the products on their website or their app to ensure the traceability throughout the supply chain. That's a legal requirement. We need to use the smarter tools. We need to have some data streams and tools for rapidly analyzing the data to prevent contamination and develop innovative approaches to inspection and compliance. And then I think I missed the packaging material. Packaging material also needs to be of food quality, and we need to ensure the safety of the product so that they don't contribute to anything which could be unsafe for the product, and it should not contribute to environment pollution too. Believe me, it's a big challenge. Especially when you are sometimes packing so many products and sending at your door, to ensure that no product gets spoiled. That's really a thing, and many times we have seen that we have returned the products because they were spoiled due to packaging problem. In case of ready to serve food, it shall meet the requirements of primary packaging as per law. For fragile items, packaging is all about keeping the item protected from drops and damage. But for the food, the focus should be on keeping the item fresh and at optimum temperatures throughout the duration of transit. Given many grocers outsource delivery, they have little interest in whether food spoils, mainly because they are unaware of the package contents and are more focused on getting the item to be right location fast and effectively. So that is a big concern in the packaging thing. If I talk about food labeling, which we were discussing, is that I think consumers should also have information about the acceptance temperature of the products, especially the products which are milk and meat, because that's a big concern. Products are generally dropped outside your house, and you are not picking the product timely, so that's an issue. That could be a big food safety issue. So we find that there are many obstacles, And these needs to be addressed during the last leg of delivery as well as during the storage and warehouse also. Further, if we see there are food safety issues can be that we need to ensure that there are large number of on-site sellers that might be operating on different e-commerce platforms. We need to ensure that they are aware, understand, and are able to implement the mandatory food safety requirements. And then we need to ensure that regulatory framework is not in silos. We have to provide greater clarity and standardization of product and make everyone accountable for throughout the increasing complex food e-commerce chain. So for ensuring all this, in India, we have FSSAI in India and has also developed, they have also developed the guidelines, and there are regulations for e-commerce. We will discuss it little later. And as we talk about the regulations in food safety for e-commerce, e-commerce is relatively new channel for sale of food and beverages. We all understand that. There are minimal but essential requirements, and there is no uniform regulatory requirement, especially for product information, because products are kept from the various sources and different types of products. Some are very novel products. So there is still a lots of discussions and problems. The industry is facing some problems in giving the product information. And although in ASEAN region, online platform has not witnessed any major incidents, like we have seen a horse meat issue, but that was not through, that was not an e-commerce issue. But we need to intact our regulation and food safety system, because we can't wait to let it happen. And we can proudly say that among the region, if I talk about only India, China, and Indonesia, Indonesia has also very recently drafted their regulation, and only these countries have their regulations in place specifically for food products sold through online channels. As I've said that we will look into FSSAI regulations. But the biggest challenge is online platform is lack of overall food safety platform, food safety network, if I will say. So now if I talk about the regulations which will be applicable in India for any e-commerce business, is first is food safety and standards, licensing and registration regulation, and FSSAI, we all know. They came with the regulation, the guidelines in 2017. I will share the link from where you can get the detailed requirement also in my presentation. We will go into details of these regulations. Then we have Consumer Protection Act 2019. This act was modified. This act was changed in 2019 to bring more protection to the consumer. We also have a Journal Act about Information Technology Act, which talks more about information technology and related requirements. Recently in sometime, I think in January, a personal data protection bill was tabled in Parliament, and I'm not sure if it has been passed, because after that, due to pandemic, we haven't seen much has been done on that end. So we are also coming up with the personal data protection bill, and that will give more confidence to the consumer, definitely. These are the few e-commerce industry we can see. We have something called as, these are the few examples, and there are many more few e-commerce industries which are operating in India and internationally. So we have a milk basket, which we used to buy the grocery and other food related products are there. We have Amazon Pantry. Amazon, which was not into grocery, has also started the pantry, which provides a grocery products. We have something, Swiggy, we all know. Swiggy is one of the, I will say, one among the biggest food delivery, ready to eat food e-commerce business they are into. And I was looking at I was discussing with Swiggy. They have really worked very nicely during the COVID, how to ensure food safety during the COVID. These are the different types of e-commerce. Then we have something called Gully Chef. Gully Chef is basically a kind of directory. They are listing the kitchens, home kitchens on their website. These home kitchens are into providing food to within apartment or nearby areas. Then we also have GEM, which is Government e-marketplace. Here also we can see that it also operates basically like a directory, and where they scrutinize and keep few of the manufacturers on their website, and the government can make purchase only through this website. Now we will talk about food FSSAI regulations. And as I have said that in 2017, on 2nd Feb 2017, Director RCD FSSAI issued the guidelines for operation of e-commerce under Section 18(1)(a), 29(2) and 29(3) for Food Safety and Standards Act 2006. And the first link, from the first link, you can get this guideline, scan copy of this guideline. And the second link is about how the e-commerce business can do go for licensing and registration with FSSAI. So these two links are very important for both for e-commerce business. The guidelines were applicable from 2nd Feb 2017. E-commerce as defined by the Act. I'm now talking about how e-commerce is defined in our Act is buying and selling of goods and services over digital and electronic network. And digital and electronic network is also defined in our Act itself. I've taken this just from the Act itself because I don't want to change a single word while defining different type of e-commerce FBOs. They are categorized into 4 different groups. Excuse me. The first group is e-commerce entity providing listing service to seller, brand owners, manufacturers, restaurants on their platform, thereby providing platform for commerce to the sellers, manufacturing, restaurants, etc. So this is the one which is just doing listing, a kind of directory. Like I've said, there were 2 Gully Chefs, and GEM are like 2.1. 2.2 is seller, brand owners, manufacturers, vendors, importers, processors, packaging or manufacturers who display or offer their food products, including food services, catering service, sale of food or food ingredients for sale to the customers through either the market-based models or inventory-based models of e-commerce. 2.3 is operating and providing storage and or distribution service to the seller, brand owners, vendors, importers, and manufacturers of the food products listed on their marketplace. So they are doing storage service also they are providing. 2.4 is providing transportation services to the seller, brand owner, vendors, importers, and manufacturers of the food products, and or providing last mile delivery transportation to the end consumers. So this last mile delivery has also come here also. So they are providing the delivery services. What the regulation says now. The regulation says that other than the 2.1, which is just providing a directory, all other e-commerce entities needs to obtain license from the Central Licensing Authority for entire supply chain and will be covered under Schedule. All the entities which are covered under Schedule 1. After the issue with delivery boy, if you remember, there was an issue with a delivery boy with one of the ready-to-serve e-commerce industry. For one of the food distribution businesses, FSSAI also stated that it shall be ensured that the last mile of delivery shall be undertaken by a trained person and safety of the product is not compromised. E-commerce entities providing listing and directory. Now there are some requirements for them also. Listing and directory services to the sellers, restaurants, vendors, importers, or manufacturers of the food product may not required to obtain license, but they should not be doing any other service like repacking, packaging, storage, delivery. They are not into that. If they are just providing a directory, then they don't need to obtain license. The above shall ensure that no misleading information or false claim are made available and shown on their platform. The entity shall clearly specify on their platform that liability of any violation of FSS Act and applicable rules and regulations made thereunder will be with the seller and all others, restaurant vendors, importers, everybody there. So that is what they have said. Further, if we go into detail, the new guidelines indicate that food can be intercepted at any point. The food can be sampled at any point from where it is being cooked and packed to where it is being delivered. So it can be intercepted at any point. For dine-in restaurants, the food inspector can come in at any time and ensure the food is not prepared under hygienic conditions. See, if I say somebody asked me a question yesterday itself, so I want to clarify here about how whose responsibility is to ensure the food safety or implementation of the food safety requirement. If I talk about, if we take an example, if food safety operator who is a delivery ready to serve food. So the food which he, from where he takes the food is a restaurant or a kitchen which is already under the purview of Food Safety and Standard Acts. We all know they need to implement Part 5 of Schedule 4, which is for the catering sectors. And they are already licensed or registered under the Food Safety and Standards Acts. So they are under the purview of the Food Safety and Standards Act, and they have to implement the requirements, the hygienic conditions and food safety as per the act, whatever act is saying. So this vendor who is picking the product from them will have that kind of arrangements that they have license or something, but giving license and ensuring that 100% of implementation is the responsibility of the restaurant who is operating, and to ensure that they have taken the license and all that, they are already under the purview of FSSAI Act. So they need to implement. Same will be applicable to the food manufacturers. The different food manufacturers, if we talk about, if you buy something, an ice cream, then they will also cover under the FSSAI Act. And there are various other food manufacturers who will come under the FSSAI Act. But the person who is picking the product or listing the product on their website has to ensure that no false claim is made through their website. And if there is any if there is any malpractice or if there is any issue with the product, then how he can trace back those things. FSSAI has also talked about the complaints and how to handle that. We will also discuss. So the next point is, it is now mandatory to add indicative images of the product on e-commerce website that will enable the consumers to identify the food that they are ordering and will eliminate any misinterpretation. All mandatory information mentioned in the FSSAI Act needs to be clearly mentioned on the website. This information should be made available to the customers before they make a purchase. This includes the expiry date for the website selling packed food, etc. According to new guidelines, restaurants and e-commerce websites are only allowed to deliver fresh food. The food should having a remaining shelf life of 30% or should be delivered 45 days prior to the expiry date. As there have been several incidents of people receiving expired food products, there is clear mention of the guideline for delivery executives as well. According to the guideline, the food should only be handled and delivered by trained personnel. This will eliminate the chances of food being handled carelessly. The safety of the food should not be compromised at any cost. The food should reach to consumer safely. The food should be handled with utmost caution from the time of preparation till the time of delivery. Recently, there was a discussion, there was a meeting in March with the Food Authority with some of the ready-to-serve food products that to mention calorific value and allergens on the food packaging, but I think there is no outcome of that meeting yet. So that is also postponed, as I understand, till date, the requirement of putting the calorific value and allergic information for ready-to-serve foods. On a supply chain compliance, the FSSAI said that all e-commerce FBO will be required to sign in an agreement with the seller owner, averring that the said seller owner are compliant with the FSSAI Act. So the onus is with the manufacturer of the product. On handling the consumer complaint, FSSAI said that e-commerce FBO would have to immediately notify the issue to the seller owners who will liable for expeditious resolution. In case of recall, FSSAI said that e-commerce FBOs entities will have to immediately delist any of the food products listed on their platform which are not in compliance with the Act. This was about the legal requirement. Now we know there is a conformity assessment system also, and this conformity assessment is a great tool for ensuring food safety. Under the conformity assessment, we have national standards like drafted by BIS, international standards like ISO, and private standards and schemes as developed by QCI, BRC, and FSSC 22000, etc. Conformity assessment is used to check that products are fit and safe for consumption against a standard, a course of practice, or regulatory requirements. Therefore, conformity assessment provides a means for preventing unsafe, unhealthy, environmentally harmful products for entry into the marketplace. So we have standards like ISO 22000, which has specific requirements which can be drafted for, which can be designed for industry like catering, warehouse, packaging, and transportation, which play an important role in e-commerce business. And we further have the international and national certification schemes like FSSC 22000, BRC, Global Gap, which is for the primary production, INDGAP, and INHACCP. There are certain schemes and ISO standards which are on the how to handle the transactions, etc. So I'm trying to say that we have schemes which are in parts, not a complete scheme or standard for the e-commerce, but there are standards, international standards and schemes which are there in the world right now, in the market right now, which can help the e-commerce business to ensure the food safety. Now, when we have these schemes, we all know the schemes and the standards, that they are generally, these schemes are generally third-party certification schemes, and ensuring acceptability and credibility of certificates is most important for this, especially within e-commerce business, as they are not directly into manufacturing of these products, but they have to trust these certificates. They should understand that if a certificate is a valid certificate or not a valid certificate. So for them, it's very important that they go for an accredited certificate, which is accepted worldwide, and they can trust the conformity assessment body from where they are taking the certificates. Now, these are the different benefits of the accredited certificate. For government, for business, and for society, there are different benefits. I'm going a little fast because I think I'm shooting the time. For government, it gives a flexible alternative to legislation. It's a facilitator of trade and an efficient enforcement monitoring tool. For business, if you have a certificate that your product's acceptance is more in the market, avoid associated costs with the multiple certifications. And for society definitely get a confidence in goods and services despite complex global marketplace. So it minimizes product failures or recalls. Now, these are the few expectations of the consumer: convenience. They are sitting at home and getting the product experience. They want shopping experience to be seamlessly. It should be integrated, the complete experience. Trust that food is safe. All information provided by the e-commerce business is appropriate, and the packaging material and other things are more environmentally friendly. I don't go for over shopping also. This is a bit about cross-border e-commerce, and this is also going to grow in near future, but there are certain challenges, as I have discussed with you, the special challenges about which the companies keep discussing among themselves. I have talked to various companies, especially the bigger ones, and they all say the product information is a big challenge for them to provide on their website on this. Hopefully in the future we will come up with this. So these are the few goals which an e-commerce business is looking, is building regulatory system agility, secure the right level of flexibility and agility to ensure that regulatory frameworks are continuously capable of addressing practices of the rapidly evolving e-commerce, implementing standardized regulation and control measures for the sales of the food through e-commerce, developing national, international standards and scheme. I have already said we don't have an integrated scheme for e-commerce food safety, although we have schemes which can apply at different components of it. Achieving traceability and accountability, drive transparent traceability through the food e-commerce supply chain in order to better share responsibility and define liabilities across the various stakeholders involved. Transparency, that whatever products is kept on there, the manufacturers, the certificate, the business, the expiry date, the transparency is also required. And the way forward is that we need awareness among all stakeholders. With all stakeholders, I will also include the consumers. Consumers can't, they also need to understand that if products had reached their doorstep, they need to ensure that product is refrigerated or kept in the fridge as soon as the product is delivered at their end. They should be aware at what temperature the product should be accepted by them. We should demand for standards and schemes for ensuring food safety of products sold through digital platform. We don't have integrated scheme. Constitute some national or international level task force across the food e-commerce sectors with representatives from all stakeholders, including conformity assessment bodies, consumer associations, and regulatory bodies. More information regarding product certification, etc., shall be disseminated through the platform. Like I've said, that information about the certification, the product, the ingredients, the country, all this should be there. Identify the priorities of aligning, establishing regulatory measures for food e-commerce. Support the work of international and national standards body. If we have tomorrow our national standard body BIS is coming up, or international standards bodies ISO, they come up to develop some kind of standard, then we should support them. That's all about e-commerce food safety. Thank you. And I would also like to thank especially the Food Authority, where I have taken some information, some colleagues of Swiggy, Amazon, Big Baskets, and Free Picks, from where I have taken the pictures. Thank you.
So now the floor is open for question and answer. If anybody has any questions, they can unmute, or there are some questions already on the chat box. Krishna ma'am, can you?
So Vani, really it was a very good session. Thank you so much for really doing it. I know we did not give you much time to really prepare, but definitely the information shared by you is very, very clear and crisp. Okay, Vani, the question is that you touched upon the hazards associated with the foods that are delivered through e-commerce. Can you elaborate a little more on what people can actually take care of?
People means you said consumers, the customers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
See, the issues which even the e-commerce business has stated that generally what happen is they deliver the product at your doorstep and they give you a message. Especially the e-commerce businesses like Milk Basket, Amazon Pantry, and Big Basket, they deliver the milk products also. They keep at your doorstep. People don't pick the product at that time because that is delivered early in the morning, and then the milk is outside, kept outside. And if you see the temperature in north and even in south also, it's not good if milk is outside there. So there are more chances of spoilage of paneer, milk, and any food product which needs to be at the refrigerated temperatures. And second thing is, we also need to have awareness. Even if we are taking the product, receiving the product in our hands also, then we need to ensure that product is cold enough. At least by touch, we can guess that it is cold enough. We should not take if a packet got warm or something. Or then we should not accept the product if the packaging is teared off and it's not, the package is not proper. We should not accept the product if the expiry date, which is also a legal requirement, is too close. So all these things, even as a consumer, I need to make sure while accepting the product from through e-commerce channel.
Correct. So I think it has answered the question because 3-4 people had together asked this actually. Hello?
There were a couple of questions from Mr. Muhammad Ali on the chat box.
Yes, it's regarding traceability.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Hi, Vani, I'm Fanish here. Hi. So whenever we ask saying ki the delivery boy should be trained regarding all the first type something, I think. So there should be provision for to see their certificate number something, or should we go blind side like they are trained or something? What do you think?
See, if you are hiring, it all depends. Sometimes, as I have said, that we have our own delivery boys. Companies will have their own delivery boys. Then you will provide them training. Fine. So you don't need to give them a certificate or something. Training record is sufficient that you have given them appropriate training how to handle the food while delivering. But if you are hiring some other company, so it depends on the company and the output of that company. So the training, you will yourself observe that the training provided by the other company which you have hired for delivery is good enough. What kind of complaints you are getting on your channel? If you're getting complaints at that product was not in the proper condition, product was spoiled, the temperature was not maintained, then definitely the training provided by this another channel, another body which you have hired for delivery is not good enough. Then you can tell them that your own training is not good enough. Send your boys for an external training. So there is no requirement of a certificate training, but it depends on, finally we want to ensure that the product which is delivered and goes to the consumer or the customer is in good conditions. So if that is managed by in-house training, that is good enough.
Perfect. So as if we have some complaint, the same mechanism like FSA has, the same mechanism would be followed, right? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And there was one question from Mr. Senthil Murugan on through e-commerce, how to do pre-shipment inspection by export through courier.
See, this, if you talk about pre-shipment inspection, you will follow whatever the norms you have. But what you need to ensure is that the product which are being placed in your website and is your app or your website, if that website is visible in countries like India, Nepal, and everywhere. So that product has to meet the requirements of all those countries, that you need to ensure through that. And inspection, you can use the third-party inspection of that country, or if they are, they will definitely have license in their own country for that country manufacturing. But whether they are meeting your country requirement or not, that you have to ensure that. And that is ensured by even the food authority if that shipment will arrive in our country. Somebody has asked me, e-commerce, any control on pest management? Yes, control on pest management is, it's basically during the warehouse and where you need to ensure the pest management. And sometimes during transportation also. So as I have said that there are requirements of how to maintain the hygienic condition, or if I talk about good practices to be followed in the warehouse, they are there in our schedule 4 also, which is in the act also. And some of the schemes, like if I talk about FSSC 22000 or ISO 22000, these schemes are also there. You can implement those schemes and have a control on the pests there in your warehouse. Is there any mandate requirement of external food safety training for vendor? And see, a vendor listed on your e-commerce website has to meet the regulatory requirements. That is their responsibility. If the law says that they have to go for the trainings, hygiene training or rating, all those trainings, then they have to go. You don't have to push them that they have to go. You just have to see that they have the license or not. Then there is question nutritional value for parcel foods. That will be as applicable in our requirement, our legal requirement. They have to meet that requirement of indicating the nutritional values.
Is there any other question? There was one question on share e-commerce website link.
E-commerce website link.
I don't know, Mr. Senthil Murugan. Can you clarify, Mr. Senthil Murugan, what do you mean? I think it's not there. Okay.
Because there are various e-commerce websites there. Are there somebody, how can I know the expiry date of fruit product? That should be mentioned on the product itself. That's what the law wants there. That what is the expiry date of the product. And law is also saying that they should not be too close to the expiry date. Whatever product is dispatched to you. So some percentage they have already given in there. You can see, check from the presentation.
What is legal action against an e-commerce food company claiming wrong commitment?
Wrong commitment or wrong claims? See, if we talk about wrong commitment, commitment can be time commitment also, that my product will reach tomorrow and then it doesn't reach tomorrow to you. So that is not that doesn't come under the food safety. But wrong claim definitely comes under the food safety. And if that is there, you can complain with your local food authority or even the central food authority there itself.
Allergen management specific guidelines in e-commerce.
That is not a question. I think he's just giving a statement. Allergen management.
Okay. I think if there are no questions, so shall we end the session?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vani ma'am, for the nice presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak.
Yeah. So the session for tomorrow is on additives and preservatives. The link remains the same. So that's all for today. See you all tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.